Chris,
Yes, sir.
thank you for joining me.
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
Absolutely. We're here at the BCI board meeting, which hopefully by now to most people who know you won't be a surprise. You've announced will be your last BCI board meeting after a long tenure in the industry and with BCI. And before we get going from me, just want to say thank you. You know, it's been a privilege and a pleasure working with you for the last, for me, 8 years. We've gone through a couple of different iterations of that role, but you've been a stalwart leader of the industry and a member of the BCI board. I just want to say, first of all, thank you for the time and dedication you've brought to the organization.
Most importantly, thank you for allowing me to do it, and it's been a great ride. It really, really has. But thank you also.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Because you've been around for a while, we want to take this moment to, celebrate what you've been able to do, but also get your views and feedback on this very special and unique industry that we both have come to love and serve. Your resume, if I pull up the old black and white version of the resume, says you started in this industry in 1994.
Correct.
But talk about how you made that transition. How did you come into the industry and come to be in East Penn and the East Penn family and the BCI family?
Well, the story goes like this. It's not a complicated one, but it's back in '94, longtime person that really, in addition to Delight doing or really founding the company and bringing it to where it was, Delight also had a counterpart. It wasn't a founder of the company, but it was a gentleman by the name of Dick Bowers. And Dick was retiring from the company. And Dick was really responsible for the entire sales organization of East Penn. So with Dick retiring, Dan Langdon, the former CFO of East Penn, was being promoted to president of the company. So they needed a new CFO. The company, East Penn, needed a new CFO. And so they were doing a search, not a nationwide search, but I'll call it a community, somewhat of a low-key search. And I don't mean this to sound self-serving at all, but somebody said, hey, have you talked to that Chris Pruitt guy that works at, back then it was Ernst & Young, or Ernst & Winnie. And so somebody introduced us, and then I went on an interview on a Monday with Dan. Then on a Tuesday, I interviewed with Dan and Delight. And then that Wednesday, I interviewed with Dick Bowers. And Dick liked me, but he didn't like me because I looked too young. I was 32 then, but he said I looked like I was 20 and I wouldn't be taken seriously. Dan and Delight said, forget about that. This is our person. And that Thursday, they made me an offer. And then I was very content where I was at Ernst. Really, really content. I was probably a year or two away from becoming a partner. And but I made the decision. I added up the pros and the cons, and my gut told me this is the right thing to do. And then I started as controller in May of 1994. And here I am today, and worked my way up. But that's the story. It's kind of boring, but that's the story.
Well, I think you made the right decision, and I think we all agree that we're glad you made that decision.
I have no regrets. It's been a wonderful, wonderful journey, and really being part of the East Penn, I'll say, family has just been the honor of a lifetime. Yeah. Truly been an honor of a lifetime.
So, Chris, you mentioned starting work at East Penn with Delight, and you were privileged enough to start working there while he was still there as the founder of the company. Later, you were asked to take on that company and lead it for a long period of time. What is the responsibility you feel to being asked to take on that role of leading a family-owned company?
First thing that comes to mind there is daunting, but let me give a little bit more perspective of that. So when you really stop and think about East Penn, it's here you have Delight Breidegam and his father. And Delight, when he came back from the war in 1946 is, they started this business together at their kitchen table and then started in a one-room place. And then he just built it over time to what it is today. And when you really stop and think about it, this is a big business that one gentleman started with his dad, and then, but he really, really recognized what I would get from him when I would talk to him all the time, is he loved people, he loved machinery and equipment, he loved customers, he loved his community. And he emphasized that all the time. And he was such a person of common sense that that's what I learned from him a lot, is just the power of common sense and communication and treating people right. So even since the light has passed, the company has gotten bigger. So how do we continue to instill that culture in a larger organization? So that's the daunting part of it. Because as we do get bigger, and as there are more regulations, and there are things with supply chain and all these rules, we still want to keep it a family-owned business with a very, very, very strong culture. And we just don't want the business to be transactional. So I think we've done a pretty good job with it since the light has passed, but there's not a day that doesn't go by that the management team and us just talk about all the time. Culture, culture, culture. And we need to be making sure that we're doing the right things for our customers, our employees, and our community. And it's not transactional. It's meaningful, not transactional. And so what the light instilled upon us is we are charged with carrying that forward. But as you get bigger, it gets harder. But just because it's harder, that doesn't mean you can't accomplish it. You just got to work at it. And we spend a lot of time doing that. A lot of time doing that.
Well, I think you've done an admirable job at that, and I hope Delight would agree. I think he would agree with me. Yeah, and you were lucky enough to work at the company while the founder was still involved heavily. How did that influence how you came to leading the organization that was eventually entrusted to you?
A lot of people, some people know this, but some people don't, is I had the benefit while Delight was living every day, and I say every day, I use that term loosely, other than when we had customers or suppliers, every day. Delight Breidegam, Dan Langdon, Bob Flicker, Sally Miksiewicz, and myself went to lunch. So I say I worked with Delight for around 20, 21 years. I got 20 years of an MBA. I got 20 MBAs because every year going to lunch with those four individuals really, really helped me learn the business and understand the business. And man, did Delight drew up plans for a new building on the back of a paper napkin after he ate his bean soup at lunch. And by golly, that's the plant we built. But I learned so much by going to lunch with those four individuals pretty much every day. I can't tell you how many lunches and or dinners I had between Delight and Dan and Bob and Sally. But it was a great, great learning ground for me. And what I did at the table, I listened more than I spoke. Because man, you would listen to Delight and Bob Flicker talk about things. It was like going to the carnival when you were a kid. It was wonderful. But that's where I learned a lot about the business. And Delight learned a lot about me, to be honest. Or Sally learned a lot about me, and we became trusted partners of one another over the years.
So switching gears a little bit, you're stepping back from your role that you've had for the last period at East Penn, but you're going to stay involved on the East Penn Board of Directors. What else are you going to be doing while you're enjoying this new period of your life?
So obviously, being executive chair of the East Penn Board is a serious responsibility, and I will take it serious. There's no doubt. Pete and Christy will do a wonderful job at running the day-to-day. My main focus at the East Penn level will be helping Pete, Christy, Norbert, and the management team drive strategy throughout the organization. In addition to that, I'm very, very involved with the Family Council of East Penn, and I'm involved in the foundation, the East Penn Family Foundation. Outside of East Penn, I'm involved in 3 other corporate boards, and one of them is in Lancaster, one of them is close towards Philly, and one is in York, Pennsylvania. 3 all very different companies. I really enjoy that side I'm going to enjoy that side of my personal life, and I think that's going to continue to keep my mind fresh. I need to find another. I was very involved in some charitable work in the Reading area, but as I got more involved in some of the industry stuff, I let that kind of wane just because it was too much. So I'm looking to get involved in some charitable work in the Reading area. I haven't made that decision yet. And then on the outside, I'll spend time playing pickleball, golfing, being outdoors, going to the gym, things like that. But I get asked this question, well, don't you have any big plans to travel? Or right now, the first year of this, I need to figure it out. After doing what I've been working for 41 years, I haven't had this exact plan of what retirement is going to look like. So I need to figure it out, and I think that's part of the fun of it. I didn't have this plan, and now I got to go execute. I want to figure it out, and I got time to do that, and that's what my wife and I.
It sounds like you're going to stay just as busy as you were last year, just with new and other items on the agenda.
I plan to. I've been retired now for 7 weeks, and I've been busy. Yeah. I've been extremely busy, which I enjoy. Yeah, I'm not going to let a lot of grass grow under my feet. Believe you me, I'll keep it going.
You mentioned the time you've put into both charitable works as well as outside the company industry organizations, and for BCI we've been absolutely incredibly blessed by the amount of time, focus, and energy, and frankly dedication and passion that you've brought to your engagement with BCI. And want to recall that last year, before you'd announced your retirement, the BCI community came together to honor you with our Distinguished Service Award, which is the highest recognition as a trade association we can give our member volunteers. Why was that level of participation in BCI important to you? Like, what drove you to commit that much of your time and spirit to a trade association?
A couple of things come to mind when you ask that question. One is, I feel with East Penn having such a stature in our industry, and with me being given the honor to be part of the board and then being the chairman of the board, you have to be involved. And our industry is such a great industry, and we matter every single day. So this isn't just BCI isn't just some, it's cool to be involved. It is cool to be involved, but man, we got work to do every day because it's so important and we mean a lot. So if I'm going to get involved in an organization, I don't want to just be somebody that's passive. I want to represent our company and our industry, that we need to, we need to do what we need to do and make changes, and as our environment and as our society is changing, we need to stay relevant. And so that requires time. It requires hard work. So what does that mean, hard work? You have a 16-hour-a-day job to begin with, and then so it's a couple more hours in the day, then it's a couple more hours. But that's what you sign up for. But it wasn't difficult. It was easy because it was the right thing to do. And plus the infrastructure behind it with Roger, with you leading, it made it easy. So it's just the right thing to do. I've never wanted to be on a board just to put it on my resume. I've wanted to be on a board because I wanted to try to make a difference. And BCI is no different.
Well, I think you've made an incredible difference in this organization, as well as at East Penn and all of the other organizations you've had engagement in. And we've talked a lot about the battery industry. That's why we're here. We're battery guys. But as you look down to the generations that are following you, plotting their careers going forward, whether it's at East Penn or other industry organizations, what piece of advice, looking back on your time and how you've driven your career forward, what would you tell them to focus on as they enter the industry and grow?
The first thing that comes to mind, if you get into our industry, become a student of it, study it, try to understand it. There's so many things that are happening in our industry. Yes, I'm lead acid or lead biased, so to speak, but there are so many other chemistries that are out there today. And we as a company, we as individual executives within our company or individual leaders within our company, it behooves us to understand what's going on so we can help shape our company, we can help shape our industry, we can advise our customers as to what's happening, as well as even in our communities. When we're doing things in our communities, people want to know what we're doing and why we're doing it. So the more we know and the more we study it, the better off we are. And so for those people that are in the industry or thinking about getting in the industry, my advice is to become a student, as well as there are massive amounts of opportunities within our industry today because things are changing. And people need energy storage solutions. So it's a great industry to be in.
Looping back to East Penn a little bit, I know you and I have talked about the thought process that as you looked towards this moment in your career, making sure that the company you led was left in solid, stable hands. And you recently, East Penn, announced that transition plan. Can you talk us through what that plan looks like and the people you've now identified and the company has identified to be trusted with the leadership going forward?
Well, a couple of things. Pete Stanislawczyk, I know it's a long last name. I call him Pete Stan. He's been with East Penn for a long time, 35 years or so. And so Pete is assuming the CEO role, and Christy Weber, who was our chief financial officer, is serving the president role. And so a lot of people ask, well, what's that difference? I'm not going to go into all of that now, but Christy is Pete obviously running the business, Christy obviously helping Pete run the business, and also at the same time, Christy focusing on some of the family side of the business as well, because that as the ownership structure has changed, and with some of the Sally's children very involved in the business, it just requires a little bit more time on the family side. But those two are very, very, very capable individuals. But the process was one of about 2 or 2.5 years ago, I went to the board and said, when I turned 63, I want to start to get out of the business on a day-to-day basis. So we went through about an 18 to 20 month period, consulting with the family, consulting with the board, but at the same time, we used an outside firm to help us through this process. And one of the first parts of that process is, do we need to go to the outside and recruit somebody, or do we keep it internal? And we went through that assessment early on, and the board and myself and the family, we all decided that we had the internal candidates to do that. And but it was a very defined. It wasn't Chris Pruitt saying, "I like Pete and Christy, let's just promote them." it was a very, very well thought out, strategic, delineated process that we went through. And to be honest, I feel really, really good that we went through a process like that. And it was formal. It wasn't hey, let's have a couple board meetings and just talk about it, and we just made a decision. Very, very formal. And I feel great for the individuals that have been picked, and I feel great that who was picked is what I want to. Yeah. So it was a great process, I think. Yeah. Yeah.
I want to close with one question that I think is probably a softball, but I hope it's a softball.
I hope so.
Having gotten to know you, and I think anyone that knows you will know, you're not a fan of being in the spotlight yourself, no matter how much we think you deserve all of the praise for the work and leadership you've shown. So I'm giving you the opportunity to turn the spotlight on other people. Looking back, you've mentioned Delight and you've mentioned Sally, but who are the other people as you look back over the last 41 years? The people that have really shaped your experience in the industry, who stand out as people that, deserve recognition from you?
Outside of, I'm going to say, the core management team of East Penn, I wouldn't be sitting here today if it wasn't for the current 10,500 people that make batteries every day for East Penn, coupled with those generations that came before. They are the people that should be recognized, in addition to all the people out there that work in all these battery companies that are making it happen every day and doing it safely, working in sometimes hot weather, working with tough materials sometimes. But man, the people that make our industry great are the people that make these quality batteries. And I just can't thank them enough. But especially, I'm being stingy now. I just want to thank all the generations of East Penn. And I can't, I've mentioned Delight, I've mentioned Sally, I've mentioned Dan Langdon, I mentioned Bob Flicker, I mentioned Pete Stanislavsek and Christy and Norbert. And I can just go on and on, but it's the people every single day that just make it happen. And when you go out in the plants and you get to know a lot of our teammates and workers, it's so gratifying to just talk to them as just regular people. Take this CEO title away. It's just going out on the plant floor and just talking. There's nothing more gratifying than that. And that's what I really, really loved about the job, is just going in the plants and just shooting the breeze with the people, with our teammates and workers. That was really the gratifying part of the job. I just loved it. I couldn't get enough of it.
Well,
Could
good.
not get enough.
Well, absolutely thank you, Chris, for everything you've contributed to BCI over the years. You've absolutely been a mentor of mine as I've grown in this role, and as you and I together drove BCI to some great places during your tenure as chairman. So, again, from me, absolutely thank you. Thank you for sitting down with us and sharing your thoughts. I'm glad to help other people see a little bit of the side of you that I've come to know and love, and it's just absolutely a pleasure. We will miss you, but we also know you deserve to go try some new things, and I hope you have a great couple of decades out of the office.
Well, I wish you at BCI and your whole team nothing but the best, and you all have a lot of great momentum going, and I know you guys will continue to that momentum forward. And it's been an honor to be part of it.